Hello, welcome to the conversation here on News Central Television. This is the show where we bring you a latest development in the world of politics on the African continent. I'm Benga Aboroa.
And I am Rita Omodia. A brand new week in the month, still in the month of February, actually. Now, on the program today, we will be discussing events in Zimbabwe ahead of the by-elections in March. We'll also be telling you about the G4, that is, Algeria, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and South Africa forming the G4 nation. So first, let's begin in Zimbabwe, where ahead of the by-elections in March, police over the weekend used dogs and tear gas to break up the country's main opposition party rally, saying they violate COVID-19 regulations. Meanwhile, President Emmerson Mnangagwa delivered an address a few kilometers away unhindered.
Police descended on thousands of unsuspecting members of the Zimbabwe Citizens Coalition for Change, waiting for their leader, Nelson Chamisa, to address them in Gokwe, which is about 300 kilometers southwest of the capital, Harare. Zimbabwe holds by-elections on the 26th of March to fill some seats in parliament that have become vacant since the last election in 2018. Now, join us on the conversation this evening to discuss this. Valentine Mapong, a renowned journalist in Zimbabwe, and Sidix Muradzikwa, a political analyst. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you for having me and my other counterparts.
Okay, I'd like to start with you, Valentine. Can you please tell us what happened at the Kwekwe rally, the venue of the CCC rally?
Yes, as Veritas, we are very concerned with the levels of violence. We would want to make sure that politics should not go ahead of people's lives. We, as Veritas and other Zimbabweans, we would not want to see any violence happening and people losing life over violence. We are very concerned as an organization. We would want to see people who engage in political discussions that are perfectly for the good of Zimbabweans. You would want to see people living together. After politics, there's absolutely nothing that will come for them.
So what happened over the weekend?
Now we have people who have been arrested. There are about 16 people who have been arrested for murder. And murder is not for the politicians, but for you as an individual.
Okay.
Are you still with us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, go on. We want to really know what happened because reports said police used tear gas on people who were rallying. So tell us more about what happened at that rally scene.
I can't say about what happened at the rally because I wasn't there specifically, but from reports locally is that they were checkers, law enforcement agents. They didn't do their job. There was levels of infiltration that we couldn't establish whether it was infiltration from which political party to another political party. But we know that there was infiltration. And at some point, the party was, the rally was going smoothly and in a swift movement, people were attacked.
Okay, let's hear from Valentine.
To someone's death.
Can you hear me? Okay, let's hear from Valentine. Were you at the venue of the rally, and what has been the police or government reaction to these violence supposedly carried out against members of the opposition? Sorry, go over to you now, Sidix.
Okay, first of all, what we should understand from the events that rocked in Zimbabwe precisely over the weekend is that certain members of a certain political party attacked the members who are attending the Citizens Coalition for Change rally in Kwekwe yesterday. And we actually heard the reports of the death of one Mboneni Ngube yesterday. So regrettably, it's a sorry situation which has just affected our country. And what I can say from the events which we witnessed over the weekend is that these events are not new in the Zimbabwean body politic. Since the turn of the new millennium, Zimbabwe has witnessed so many accounts of politically motivated violence, which are being orchestrated at national level by the government towards the political opposition forces, towards the members of the media, towards the ordinary citizens who act as a powerful and counter-hegemonic force in Zimbabwe. So the acts of violence, they are not new in Zimbabwe. And what we actually witnessed yesterday, as you alluded to, is the continuation of the use of state-sponsored or state-perpetrated violence against any fundamental threat to the existence or to the hegemon of the state.
Now, Valentine, yesterday the police used dogs and tear gas to disperse the rally for allegedly violating COVID-19 regulations, barring more than 100 people from gathering. And we also have reports that the President, Emerson Mnangagwa, and the ruling ZANU-PF did have a rally that was holding not too far away from the CCC venue. Did the CCC get permits from the police before proceeding with the rally? And yes.
Indeed. It's shocking how the police, actually the point that I'm going to make right now is that law enforcement agents have been used to move and support a certain political agenda. What is shocking is that the CCC party had earlier gotten clearance from the police. Everyone knew that the CCC party was going to have a rally in Kwekwe, and it wasn't an issue until when the rally was midway through. Then people came in and started attacking. The police didn't react swiftly as the law enforcement agents are known to do. We are not supporting any political party as journalists, but we know people should respect political parties. The electoral law of the country is very clear. People are very open and supposed to support any party of their choice.
Valentine, sorry to come in, Valentine. What was the reason the police gave? Has there been any statements from the government officials or the Zimbabwean police on the events in Kwekwe? Why did they disrupt that rally? What was the reason?
Actually, we actually have about 16 suspects who have been arrested for murder, and the police are investigating, which is quite surprising. And for us, we applaud the police for the swift movement. The 16 people have been arrested for murder. There's actually one suspect who is still to be arrested. We respect the police in terms of what they've done. We are happy that they are moving, but there is a life lost.
Okay, Valentine, from what you're saying now, you say the police have arrested some suspect. Does it mean it wasn't the police who used tear gas on those rallying? Is that what you're trying to say? Valentine?
The tear gas, actually, I'm not privy to the event because I wasn't there.
Okay.
I wasn't there for effect.
Okay. All right, let's hear from
I'm
Siddiq.
relying on information that is coming from the police in terms of people who have been arrested.
Okay, let's hear from Siddiq now, whether it was the police or probably just people trying to disrupt the rally who used the tear gas. Siddiq, let's hear from you, because we also know that this CCC, headed by Chamisa, was formerly one of the major opposition parties in Zimbabwe, a faction of the MDC. Now, do you see the same aggression coming up on other opposition parties in Zimbabwe?
No, certainly not. I don't see that happening, as you are saying. The politically motivated violence in Zimbabwe, which mostly come from the states, is towards the main opposition rival. It is towards the largest or the biggest political organization which opposes the state or the hegemony. So I don't see the other opposition political forces, none other than the one which is headed by Nelson Chamisa, being attacked or being victims of the state-sponsored violence. And actually, I can say the other political parties are being accused. The other political parties are being accused of being in bed with the ruling party. So we have actually witnessed I think 2 weeks ago, whereby one of the leaders of the opposition political parties of the MGC Alliance, Douglas Monzora, he conducted his rally peacefully. There was no disruption there. He did that without the police moving, without any members of the other political parties threatening the congregation he had when he was doing the political campaigns. But shockingly, when the leader of the biggest, as you said, Nelson Chamisa, tried to conduct his second rally this year towards the by-elections in Gokwe, precisely there were some rogue elements by the police, if I may say. They throw the tear gas, but with respect of the courts having allowed or permitted that rally, and the police actually moved in and disrupted that rally without giving any proper explanation as to why they were doing that.
Okay, staying with you, Siddiq. Earlier, just before we got into the studio, I was going through the Twitter feed of the spokesperson for the Citizen Change for Coalition, CCC party, Fadzai Mahere. She did tweet that a number of ZANU-PF supporters were actually among those 16 that Valentine alluded to have been arrested by the police in Zimbabwe. Why is the political environment in Zimbabwe so charged? Why will ZANU-PF supporters attack a peaceful rally of CCC supporters? Is it the politicians that are making the atmosphere so charged? Because elections are a civic exercise. It's one person's choice or the other.
Or do they see the party as a threat?
Look, the issue of...
in terms of how the ruling party operates, it's not in my purview or in my personal capacity to say this is what is happening. But what I know is politics in Zimbabwe is a volatile game. Whenever there's a challenge, there is always bound to be violence. No doubt about it. We've been reporting about this for the past 20 years. You remember during the days of Mugabe, the violence was also there. The issue is whenever there is a threat to power, there's bound to be challenges. The ruling party also is claiming of factionalism, and they're blaming each other in terms of who is behind this and who is behind that. Just recently, the president fired his personal colleague who was the Minister of State Security, and the people who were arrested yesterday.
Okay, I think we have technical issues with Valentine there, but I would like to ask you the same question. Sidix, if you could respond to that question I threw to Valentine. Why is the atmosphere in Zimbabwe always charged when it comes to politics?
Look, when the state is living in constant fear of any existential threat to its very existence, to its political power, it uses so many mechanisms to consolidate and to retain power. So these mechanisms can come in form of direct violence, institutionalized violence, organized violence. And Machiavelli once said, you can consolidate power. The prince can consolidate power using unnecessary and necessary mechanism. And that is what is actually happening in Zimbabwe. Like what Valentine is alluded to, is that since the days of Robert Mugabe, fear and violence has been used to actually fend off or to ward off political threats in Zimbabwe. So when the state is actually threatened, the state power is threatened by any counter-hegemonic force, the state uses or reacts in such a way that it wants to use any tool which is available. And in our case in Zimbabwe, it's actually a sorry state that the state always resorts to politically motivated violence to thwart or to shrink the democratic spaces of the opposition for forces which are posing fundamental threats to political power.
Okay, Sidix, while the opposition continues to be threatened, we know that there was also a press conference by the CCC this afternoon, which is headed by Nelson Chamisa. Do you know what exactly was the highlight of this press conference? Does Nelson Chamisa also feel threatened by this, or he actually still feels that his party can go ahead in these elections?
Privy to the contents of the press conference which Nelson Chamisa had this afternoon. But what I can say, Nelson Chamisa himself, as a leader of biggest opposition party, is also afraid of the physical violence which are always rocking in the country. Last year, I think around in December, when he was traveling, he did mention that he is living in constant fear. He is living in constant fear of the police who are supposed to protect the citizens and to protect him as a leader of the opposition. So the fact that he actually confirmed that he is actually living in constant fear of the state apparatus, which includes the members of the CIO, the members of ZANU-PF militia groups, the members of the police, the army, is indeed a testimony that he is actually living in fear of political violence in this country.
Now, with this constant fear, do you think he will step down?
No, it's not the first time that Nelson Chamisa, as an individual, as a leader of the opposition political front in Zimbabwe, has been subjected to these issues of direct violence. When he was, I think a decade ago, he has witnessed some violence. He has been beaten, locked up. So it's not actually the first time. And I can recall in one of his former statements whereby he said that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And actually, that is what we actually see. If it was the case that he was going to shun political participation or shun from politics because of violence, he would have done that long ago before he even become the face of the fundamental and the strongest opposition in Zimbabwe. So in conclusion, I don't see him stepping down in light of these politically motivated violence.
Now, Valentine, the Amnesty International recently stated that Zimbabwe, which was once a beacon of a struggle against anti-colonialism, is ruthlessly curbing dissent. And is there anything the civil society in Zimbabwe can do, and international development partners, because Zimbabwe does get a lot of funding from international development partners, can do to address this unbridled violence? And yes.
What I can say is that we're actually shocked by the swiftness of the police in responding to the violence in Kwekwe. There's always been violence around the country, around the elections, but we are actually shocked, and we respect and we applaud the level of the effectiveness of the police in terms of arresting the perpetrators of violence on the Kwekwe event. But that is not the only event that we want to respond to. We want people to respond to. We want the police, law enforcement others to respond to each and every case of political violence that is reported. We know of several cases around the country that are happening. This is not the only rally that is political campaign.
Valentine, okay, we seem to have some issues with your net, your audio. But over to you, Sidix. We're looking at the way forward. And Genga earlier on asked Valentine what civil society organizations can do to change the situation around elections, this issue of violence during elections. So what can civil society organizations do to stop this?
First of all, what you should understand is the civil society as organizations or members of the third estate, they are also victims of violence, which is sponsored by the state in this country. But be that as it may, they are trying by all means possible and necessary to ensure that there is a peaceful coexistence in this country, to do away with the psychology of violence, to deal with the issues of institutionalized violence. And we have actually witnessed several CSOs which are calling for peace campaigns, peaceful campaigns, calling for dialogues, which I think this dialogue should be heeded. The calls to the national dialogue should be heeded by the political divide in this country. Both the opposition forces should come to table and discuss the issues which are affecting the countries, which are affecting the citizens of this country. And also, ZANU-PF leaders or the state leaders should also come in and join this discussion, which are fostered by civil society organizations. But these civil society organizations are also a part of the victims of state-sponsored violence.
I mean, Sidix, you paint a picture of, you almost say, you know, Zimbabwean civil society organizations are part of this. We really can't do much about the situation. We just hope for better times. But Zimbabwe is a big part of the Southern African Development Commission, SADC, and they're also a member of the international community. Is there any way, what is SADC doing about this constant violence that has almost become a part of Zimbabwean society when it comes to politics? We thought that was the end of it during the term of Robert Mugabe, and now we see a continuation. What is SADC doing, and can any type of external pressure be put on the government in Zimbabwe to respect basic human rights and respect the civic space?
To be very honest, the question on whether SADC should come in to deal with what is happening in this country, I think SADC as an institution, it has failed not only Zimbabwe and Southern Africa, but so many countries. SADC is actually a toothless bulldog, if I may say. And if you borrow the words from one Julius Malema, SADC is actually a brotherhood of dictators who protect each other. We can, or I can say that SADC as an institution, it is there to promote the interests of the leaders, which are in power, not any other interest. So to say that SADC will pressure the Zimbabwean government or the Zimbabwean state to deal with these issues of democracy and issues of violence, I don't think that will happen. And if it's happened, it will be just a political smokescreen. And you did mention that Zimbabwe is actually a signatory of the international law. That's why other countries, other Western superpowers are imposing human rights sanctions against the certain individuals in Zimbabwe, against some they are saying there's data sanctions probably which are coming from the United States are targeted, whether they are targeted or not, but from the international lenses or the international perspective, the sanctions are indeed coming in terms of the abuse of the people, in terms of the politically motivated violence which we are witnessing.
Okay, thank you so much, Siddiq. You've mentioned so many things and talking about the SADC and its responsibility. We do hope for the best in Zimbabwe and, of course, for the Electoral Commission to do its duty and create a free and fair by-election. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
My pleasure.
And that's where we'll draw the curtains for that particular topic. We'll come back with another topic where we'll be looking at where Algeria, Ethiopia, and Nigeria and South Africa have formed a coalition called the G4 Nations. We'll be right back.
You're welcome back to the conversation. It's now time for us to switch gears to another subject. But before we do that, let's just do a recap of the Zimbabwe story. Now, it's quite interesting that the developments in Zimbabwe, they have by-elections on the 28th of March, and people are watching, the whole world is watching how the conduct of that elections will be. Zimbabweans, like many Africans, are very passionate about their democratic experience, and this passion sometimes leads to violence, and I hope they respect the civic space and the by-elections won't be violent.
Yeah, that's the expectation of a lot of people, and that's what brought this topic to the front burner for today's edition of the conversation. Earlier on, we had Siddiq and we had Valentine, who spoke vehemently about how the rallies are going on for the CCC party that is headed by Nelson Chamisa. Now, this party earlier this year was being formed from the major coalition, that's the MDC Alliance, and then we have Nelson Chamisa bringing up yellow votes, changing the slogan of the party, trying to make a difference and telling people that it's not just ZANU-PF party that they have in Zimbabwe, but there's a stronger party coming up. And unfortunately, in one of these rallies that we had, we saw police, or rather, because according to Siddiq, they're not even sure if it was even policemen who actually used tear gas on those who were rallying for the formation of this new party, that's the CCC party. But we see tear gas being used at people coming out to rally, and we see a strong movement against the opposition party. And just like we earlier on discussed, Benga, we said this is not now we started. It started from even the era of Robert Mugabe, where we see the main party, that's the ZANU-PF party, come strong hand against the opposition parties.
Yes, and there are reports, credible reports from the arrests that have been made so far, which is, I mean, it gives a glimmer of hope that the police would actually enforce the law and arrest card-carrying members of ZANU-PF.
It's questionable because the police is also under this. I don't know how we can remove the police from even under the main executive party, that's the ZANU-PF.
So it's almost like state-sanctioned violence because the police are meant to be neutral.
Where were they when this was happening? That's the question.
Yes, I mean, the police will tell you that they unleashed dogs and tear gas in order to stop the violence, which was provoked by ZANU-PF thugs when they came to Kwekwe, the venue of the CCC rally, to disrupt it. So they would say that, I mean, that, you know, we had to disperse them with tear gas and we were just trying to keep the peace. That's why they did that. But it's nice and it's a breath of fresh air to see that the police would actually make arrests. And out of those arrests, quite a number of them were card-carrying
Yes.
members of the ruling ZANU-PF
And it's
party.
quite unfortunate that, unfortunately, one of the people, or rather a person actually died due to this violence that occurred during the rally, a rally which was supposed to be peaceful, but we see people dying in rallies. I mean, when does this come to an end? When do we see peaceful rallies? We see political parties, and we're afraid that when this rally comes up, that we'll definitely see violence coming up. But that's all what we discussed on the first part of the program. And right now, we switch gears to a new formation of the G4 nations. Benga, what do we have?
Okay, now with the need to deal with the various issues confronting Africa, leaders of Algeria, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and South Africa did come together to form the G4, announced the formation of the group of 4 nations, the 4 nations who met on the sidelines of the 6th EU-AU summit at Brussels, used the opportunity to discuss the crisis on the continent with a view to coming up with a practical and effective solutions.
Now, this newly created group of 4 nations in Africa differs from the G4 nations comprising Brazil, Germany, India, and Japan, which are 4 countries that support each other's bids for permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council. But now with this new G4 formation going on in Africa, Ethiopia, South Africa, Algeria, and Nigeria, will this make a difference? Well, that's why we're going to ask Ayodele Lawal Adio join us live on the program of The Conversation. He's the managing editor, Avalon Daily, Lagos. It's so good to have you join us on The Conversation. Ayodele.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So to start with, what do you make of this formation? Was it necessary?
To be honest, I'm not sure what to make of this this new G4 group. Over the top of my head, I would argue that Nigeria faces a more, geopolitical, or if you rather call threats of instability in the Sahel region. And if you asked me, I would have thought that Nigeria would be more concerned about playing a more important role in the G8, which comprises of countries across the Sahel region. That for me is where there has to be some sense of urgency, because the spillover of terrorism, banditry, and criminality across the Sahel is endangering Nigerians spectacularly, and it's some real problem that we have to solve, and solve very quickly. Over the top of my head, I would have thought that was a more pressing issue for the Nigerian government. To that extent, I am really over the top. I'm really not sure what value this brings to the table, or what problem this new group intends to solve, or what issue it intends to lobby in favor of or against. You just highlighted the other G4 group comprises of Japan, India, Brazil. That group was specifically set up to play an important role in the Global Security Council, where they want to be listed as members of that Security Council, and hence is some sort of a lobby advocacy vehicle for those countries to be a part of the Security Council. So I'm not sure what this group is set up to achieve. It's not yet clear. We haven't heard from Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs to clearly break down what the objective was, or what Nigerians will expect from this new group. So it's still a bit hazy now, and I'm not going to make very, hasty conclusions.
Now, Ayodele, looking at multilateral platforms, groupings, and all of that, how effective are they? Because looking at ECOWAS, for example, and Nigeria is a member of ECOWAS, we're a member of OPEC, we're a member of the African Union, and people, African Union members, they've been talking about fostering unity among members. But looking at the geographical and the geopolitical setup of the members of this G4 platform, South Africa, Algeria, Ethiopia, and Nigeria, they're powerhouses in their own region. What can we set to benefit? What can we gain from this union, if I may use that word?
I'll take it from the first point that you highlighted, which is the fact that as has Nigeria or has African nations benefited from any of the unions, organizations that it's found itself in? And you and I know the answer. We have discussed on several occasions on this platform the effectiveness or otherwise of the ECOWAS or the African Union and the various other African groups in the face of poor leadership across the continent, in the face of the usurping of various democratic institutions, in the face of several coups. And we have always come to the very sad conclusion that many of these organizations are big dogs without teeth to bite. And so the idea that another group called the G4 will remarkably be a radical departure from what we have seen in terms of AU and ECOWAS is yet to be seen. There is no evidence that suggests to me that the G4 will be any different, from the other groups that, quite frankly, are just the big boy clubs where friendly conversations are held and very little impact is felt on the average African across the continent. So it's yet to be seen how this will be different, why it will be different, and whether there's a political will from the leaders of these four nations to actually push, for the various issues that had led to the gathering of this G4 in the very first place. Like I said, the objective is not yet clear to us. And so I cannot speak as to whether these four countries have demonstrated any will or capacity to achieve whatever objective that they have set out to achieve. But if history, is going to be a guidance for us, or a guide for us, I would err on the side of caution and be cautiously optimistic that the G4 would provide any leadership that is different from what we have seen from the AU, or the ECOWAS.
Okay, Adela, as much as things are still hazy and we cannot jump to conclusions, we know that one of the mandates of the G4 is actually to ensure that the African Union carries its work successfully. Now, that is coming from Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who initiated this G4. Now, you also talked about the various regional bodies we have and how ineffective they have been. We have a new leadership of the African Union. How do you think we can make African Union more effective to actually deal with the yearnings of the people?
Listen, I think the first way that we can make any union effective is for member states of that union to first deliver quality leadership at home. Now, if these leaders are unable to deliver quality leadership at home, if these leaders are unable to reflect democratic values and live up to the oath of the office that they swore, and to deliver the dividends of democracy to their citizens, then there is no way that we're going to have very strong African institutions. It is a fallacy to expect that a poisonous tree is going to produce healthy fruits. It is not going to happen. So I would say that the first way we can have very strong institutions, and in this case, we're talking about the African Union or the ECOWAS, is that member states and the leaders that represent these member states must be leaders that first deliver quality leadership at home.
Hello, Ayodele, are you with us? I think we lost Ayodele there, but I do agree with him that we need quality leadership at home before you go out, because it's the way you lay your bed, that's the way you would lie on top of it. I think Ayodele is back. Okay.
I'm sorry, where did I cut off?
Yes.
You're talking about the member states being able to deliver on them.
So basically I was saying that until member states are able to deliver dividends of democracy to their people, until they show respect for the rule of law, until they're able to lift their citizens out of poverty, provide employment for the hundreds and hundreds of million graduates across the continent, and to provide security for their people, there is no way that the African Union or the ECOWAS would be a viable institution for transformative change, or good. So it has to start from home before they can extend it out at the ECOWAS front.
Okay, finally, Dele, we see what is going on in the world right now. NATO speaks with one voice. We have proliferation of all sorts of groups. There's the BRIC, we now have the G4, there's ECOWAS, there's SADC, there's EAC. Do you think going forward, African Union should be tight? We should have a close-knit group and we should all speak with one voice, because we see what's happening in Poland right now. Different countries are sending representatives to evacuate the citizens there. If we had like an African Union response unit, wouldn't it be better for us to concentrate all our efforts into making the African Union more effective rather than breaking into smaller groups?
I mean, yes. I mean, of course, I would like a situation to see where we have a stronger African Union, better coordination, better trade relations within the African Union. I mean, we'd all like to see that. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But I mean, taking a cue from the European Union that you have rightfully mentioned, it took decades and decades of war and reconciliatory efforts led by the leaders of the New World Order, which the United States of America, which put together the system, I think about 75 years ago, that has given birth to what we now call the European Union now, and the collective voice with which they speak, and the collective economic and defense policy that we have seen over the years. So to that extent, there has to be a lot of work done, especially by the biggest dogs in the yard in the African continent. And I'm talking about Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia. The most influential countries in the continent must be willing to bite the bullet, to sacrifice some immediate gains, and be willing to work with other countries to be able to deliver a strong continental approach towards global issues. And it starts by having, the African Trade Agreement. I think that is a viable platform from where the African continent can begin a process of working together and forging a common economic front that might set the tone for a stronger and well-coordinated intra-African relations, and probably a more coordinated African, worldview. And maybe, just maybe, if the countries are able to sit together and begin to put the intra-African trade agreement into work and see that it is successfully implemented, then we can have some sort of a template to coordinate intra-African affairs and to forge a common front when it comes to more pressing issues like security, foreign policy as a continent, and to deal with various other threats, across our continent.
Thank you very much.
So it's a lot of hard work.
Thank you very much, Ayodele Lawal Dio. We're fast pressed for time, and that's how much we can take on the conversation today. That was Ayodele Lawal Dio, Managing Editor at Avalon Daily. Thanks for your insights. And yes,
this is where we'll call it a wrap. I mean, we do wait for the expectations of the G4 nations, what they bring to the African Union. That's where we'll draw the curtains for today's edition of The Conversation. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Benga Boro. I'll see you on Wednesday for another edition of The Conversation.